Since we are at the start of a new unit, we'll be getting several new pieces of paper. It is important that you check in with me one-on-one to gather up all of those handouts. There will be 2 green sheets, a separate binder organizer and learning map, and you will need both. But we're starting this period with time for review. We need to think about the topics we've already learned because our new unit will look at that past history and then launch us into change. So we're going to look this unit at the end of the Middle Ages that we've been studying for the last 3 or 4 months and looking at the beginning of the modern world that we are a part of today. So let's start with some basic vocabulary and facts. Pause the video for a moment. Consider the orange questions on screen. Hopefully you're remembering all the way back to culture as this shared system of thinking. Hopefully you're thinking of AD for Anno Domini, or in the year of our Lord, as the modern side of the timeline, what we would consider the positive part of a number line. The 3 monotheistic religions are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. That is in sequential order. If you want to pause the video and think about their order of size, that would be a good challenge. The language of the Romans was Latin, which remained important into the Middle Ages, especially for the elite members of the upper social classes. And then the 3 ranks that existed below the Pope, so you should be picturing that pyramid or church hierarchy. You had the Pope at the top, and then the archbishops, the bishops, and the priests at the bottom, right? All of these are forces that we're going to continue to consider as we move forward. Remembering the arrangement of our timeline is also important. Pause the video and think about how you would fill in the question marks that I have included. These are the completed versions of each of those, and we should be familiar with these major events. We might also have added in 1215 the signing of the Magna Carta that we studied at the end of last unit. Perhaps you could have put in 1066, which is the Norman Conquest and the Battle of Hastings, where England is unified under Duke William. Maybe you would have put in this huge war that goes from 1337 to 1453, which was the 100 Years' War. And so we've studied all of these major events and time periods. Now we're going to be looking at this moment in this area. The age of revolutions, the series of major changes that lead into what we consider the modern times. Our world today. And a lot of the systems that are currently in place can be traced back to the late 1400s, 15 and 1600s with the events that we're going to be studying this unit. Now, in class, we're going to do an activity called some hexagonal thinking, which is a way to look at some big ideas and the connections or relationships between them. So this would be like each of these little hexagons with 6 sides will have a term on it, and then the student's job is to arrange them in a way that shows how they're connected and then be ready to explain them. We're going to do it a second time tomorrow with new partners, and so for the moment, just hold tight and we'll do that when you're here so that you can have your own slips. From there, we previewed the student learning map. So take a moment, pause the video, and think about how you would plug in the blank lines for our overarching key learning and our big unit essential question. What we're going to be looking at are changes in art, science, government, and religion. So we're going to look at 4 major events this unit. We'll have a small mini unit after this on the age of exploration, which would be a 5th event, but really we're going to focus now on these 4. And some people might say, like, aside from Mr. Cotton, why is art on this list with other topics that have such a clear influence on history? And it's because art is actually more important than you might first think. You know, it's a reflection of our culture and our thinking and our values. We're also going to see how the changes that took place in the way people viewed and produced art then led to these other changes. So it's kind of the starting point. And all of this works together to create what we call the modern world. How do we package that into the question that will drive our inquiry? Well, we're going to think about how new ideas challenged and revolutionized or changed life after the Middle Ages. This is a unit that, yes, is going to continue to look at change, much as we've been doing in Unit 5. But what we're going to look at even more is the power of ideas. Last unit, I think we talked a lot about big events and how those led to change. This unit, we're going to talk about how, truthfully, a relatively small number of people with really big ideas created tremendous changes that basically shaped the next 500 years of history, right up until your actual lives. The way this will break apart on our learning map is we'll have 5 LEQs. We're going to look first at the causes of the Renaissance, which really kind of represent the causes of these revolutions overall, since this was the first event. We'll look at the Renaissance itself, this revolution in art, then the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, which is a change in thinking in politics and government, and then the Reformation, which focuses on religion. And so we're really going to take this kind of event by event and exploring some of the big ideas within each. To preview all of that, we're going to start with a text that is going to get us to basically get like a 5-minute look at the next 5 weeks. It's going to kind of give us the overall big idea and then a paragraph on each of the big topics that we will explore. I'm going to attach this to you as a PDF with a couple of links and jobs that I've marked on the side. You don't need to import it to Notability. I'll give you a paper copy. You can do your work on just any piece of paper that you have at home. You'll start just by reading it. Then you will focus on some underlining. So I want you to dotted underline the most important people. And then I want you to solid underline the most important events. I'm not looking for a lot of marking. I'm looking for 1 or 2 to each paragraph. After that, you're going to actually turn some text into images. And so I think there's a video embedded within that will kind of talk you through my first image on the Renaissance. You'll get to see an example of mine and how it kind of breaks pieces apart. And then you'll do the same thing for either documents 3 or 4. And if you can get that far, we'll finish the rest of them when you return.